The city lights blurred outside the taxi window, a familiar kaleidoscope of ambition and anonymity. Jasmine Reyes clutched her worn audition sides, the lines of a melodramatic soap opera character feeling particularly hollow tonight. Another rejection. Another polite, "Thank you, next." Her acting career, once a vibrant dream, was slowly, painfully bleeding into the reality of lukewarm coffee and impatient customers at the upscale cafe where she waited tables. The scent of stale pastry seemed to cling to her, a constant reminder of how far she was from the spotlight. Her tiny apartment, a shoebox in a bustling neighborhood, felt less like a sanctuary and more like a holding cell for deferred dreams. She longed for a role that would challenge her, something that felt real, authentic, anything but the tired tropes she kept getting. Little did she know, the most unexpected, and perhaps the most dangerously real role of her life was about to be offered, not on a dusty stage, but in the polished, secretive world of a tech billionaire. It was a role that would demand every ounce of her acting skill, yet, ironically, challenge her to be more genuinely herself than ever before. She was about to be forced to be his fake girlfriend, but she never thought she'd fall in love with him. The call came on a Tuesday, cutting through the monotonous clatter of coffee cups. It was from a discreet, high-end talent agency Jasmine had once hoped would represent her, a place she thought had long forgotten her struggling existence. The voice on the other end, smooth and efficient, belonged to a woman named Ms. Albright, known for handling the most exclusive, unconventional clients. "Ms. Reyes," Ms. Albright began, "we have an unusual opportunity that might be a fit for your specific talents. It's not a traditional acting role, but it requires considerable skill in performance and performance discretion." Jasmine, balancing a tray of cappuccinos, felt a jolt of curiosity. "I'm listening," she said, ducking into the quiet of the staff room. "It concerns Mr. Landon Pierce," Ms. Albright continued, dropping the name like a perfectly cut diamond. Landon Pierce. The name alone conjured images of stark glass towers, groundbreaking technology, and an almost mythical reclusiveness. He was the enigmatic founder and CEO of Synergy Innovations, a tech giant on the verge of a multi-billion-dollar merger, a deal that had dominated business headlines for months. He was known for his brilliance, his ruthless business acumen, and his almost pathological avoidance of the public eye. "Mr. Pierce," Ms. Albright explained, her voice carefully neutral, "is currently embroiled in shall we say, a minor media kerfuffle. Certain fabricated rumors have surfaced, threatening to cast a shadow over his reputation and, consequently, the merger's finalization. To mitigate this, he requires a temporary yet highly convincing solution." Jasmine's eyebrows rose. "A solution?" "A girlfriend," Ms. Albright stated bluntly. "A charming, publicly appealing, and utterly devoted partner for a period of 1 month. Someone who can subtly shift public perception, proving that Mr. Pierce is, in fact, a stable, well-adjusted individual, contrary to the rather absurd accusations being circulated." Jasmine almost dropped her tray. A fake girlfriend? For Landon Pierce? It sounded like something out of a bad romantic comedy. "And you think I'm a fit?" she asked, a skeptical laugh escaping her lips. "Mr. Pierce is a private individual," Ms. Albright explained, ignoring the sarcasm. "He requires someone who can maintain absolute discretion, adhere strictly to a predefined narrative, and project an image of genuine affection without actual emotional entanglement. Your acting background, combined with your fresh face and wholesome public persona, makes you an ideal candidate. You are not an A.B. celebrity, which is precisely what he needs. No pre-existing baggage." The wholesome public persona was a polite way of saying unknown, but the prospect of escaping her current reality, even for a month, was alluring. "What are the terms?" Jasmine asked, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. Ms. Albright outlined them: a month-long commitment, extensive public appearances, a strict non-disclosure agreement, and a significant financial compensation. The sum mentioned made Jasmine's head spin. It was enough to pay off her student loans, secure her rent for a year, and actually pursue acting without the crushing financial pressure. "There will be an interview process," Ms. Albright concluded. "Tomorrow morning, at Mr. Pierce's private residence. Dress impeccably, be prepared to answer personal questions, and remember, discretion is paramount." Jasmine hung up, her hand still trembling slightly. The cafe's fluorescent lights suddenly seemed less harsh, the clatter of dishes less grating. A month. A month as a fake girlfriend to a billionaire. It was ridiculous, unbelievable, and utterly terrifying. But it was also a lifeline, a chance to step into a completely different world, even if only for a brief, performative moment. The thought of it filled her with both apprehension and a thrilling sense of the unknown. She knew she had to try. This wasn't just a role, it was an escape, a gamble that could change everything. She spent the rest of her shift in a daze, the scent of coffee replaced by the intoxicating aroma of possibility. The next morning, Jasmine stood before the imposing gates of Landon Pierce's estate, a sprawling modernist marvel nestled on a secluded hilltop. Her borrowed dress, a tasteful but simple navy blue, felt inadequate amidst the grandeur. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of nerves and excitement. This was a different world, far removed from the cramped audition rooms and bustling cafes she knew. A silent guard ushered her through the gates, down a winding driveway lined with perfectly manicured hedges. The house itself was a study in minimalist luxury, all sharp lines of glass and steel, gleaming silently under the morning sun. It radiated an almost austere power, a reflection of the man who resided within. Inside, the silence was profound, broken only by the soft hum of central air conditioning. Ms. Albright met her in a vast, minimalist living area adorned with abstract art and sleek, uncomfortable-looking furniture. "Mr. Pierce will see you shortly," she said, her voice as cool and polished as the polished concrete floors. "He appreciates punctuality." Moments later, a door at the far end of the room opened, and Landon Pierce entered. He wasn't what Jasmine had expected. Media photos typically portrayed him as stern, almost severe. In person, he was taller, broader than she'd imagined, with an athletic build that hinted at hidden strength. His dark hair was impeccably styled, and his charcoal suit was tailored to perfection. His eyes, the color of stormy skies, held a deep, almost unsettling intensity, but also a hint of guardedness. He exuded an aura of quiet power, a formidable presence that made the air around him seem to hum. He didn't smile. "Ms. Reyes," he said, his voice deep and resonant, a surprisingly calm tone for a man in the midst of a media scandal. He didn't offer a hand to shake, simply gestured towards a sleek, uncomfortable armchair. "Thank you for coming." Jasmine sat, acutely aware of his piercing gaze. "Thank you for considering me, Mr. Pierce." He sat opposite her, his posture straight, almost rigid. "Ms. Albright informs me you're an actress. Tell me about your experience." His tone was direct, analytical, like a programmer debugging a complex code. Jasmine recounted her training, her small roles in indie films and commercials, her theater experience. She spoke passionately about the craft, the dedication, the joy of inhabiting a character. As she spoke, she noticed a subtle shift in his expression, a flicker of something she couldn't quite decipher in his intense eyes, perhaps a hint of curiosity. "And? You understand the unique nature of this role?" he interjected, cutting to the chase. "This isn't about artistic expression, Ms. Reyes. This is about damage control. It's about optics. You will be playing a part, a very specific part, for a very specific audience. You will be my girlfriend. In." public at least. "I understand," Jasmine affirmed, her voice steady. "I'm a professional. I can maintain character, and I understand the stakes involved." She looked at him directly, trying to project confidence, an inner resolve that matched his own. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowed. "Good, because this requires absolute commitment. You will move into my guest house for the duration. You will accompany me to all public events. You will learn specific details about my life, our shared history, our relationship. There will be handlers, PR consultants, image coaches. They will guide your every public interaction." Jasmine's heart sank a little. This was far more encompassing than she had imagined. A month. Living under his roof, under constant scrutiny, performing a charade every waking moment. It sounded exhausting, suffocating even. "And discretion," he added, his voice dropping to a low, serious tone. "The NDA you signed is ironclad. Any breach, any deviation from our agreed-upon narrative will result in severe legal consequences. I have zero tolerance for leaks or sensationalism." His gaze was unwavering, a clear warning. "Understood," Jasmine replied, her resolve firming. The financial compensation, the chance to finally break free from her struggling existence, outweighed the daunting requirements. He studied her for a long moment, his intense gaze seeming to strip away her layers, searching for something beneath the surface. Just when she thought he was about to dismiss her, a faint, almost imperceptible nod. "Very well, Ms. Reyes. Ms. Albright will provide you with the details. Welcome to Synergy Innovations." The interview was over. Just like that. No warmth, no pleasantries, just a cold, transactional agreement. As Ms. Albright led her out, Jasmine felt a strange mix of relief and trepidation. She had landed the role of a lifetime, perhaps. But as she stepped back into the dazzling sunlight outside the glass mansion, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just signed up for something far more complex, far more demanding than she could possibly imagine. The performance had begun, and she knew, with a chilling certainty, that this stage was unlike any she had ever known. The transition into Landon Pierce's world was abrupt and disorienting. Jasmine moved into the luxurious guest house on his sprawling estate, a detached, glass-walled structure that felt more like a minimalist art gallery than a home. Her modest belongings, packed into two worn suitcases, seemed comically out of place amidst the sleek, expensive furnishings. Her days, once a scramble of auditions and cafe shifts, transformed into a meticulously orchestrated ballet of public relations. Her first week was a whirlwind of immersion. She met Landon's core team, Ms. Albright, who oversaw every aspect of their public narrative, and Liam, a sharp, affable PR consultant who was tasked with coaching Jasmine on everything from posture to basture, palatable conversation topics. There was also Sarah, a discreet stylist who curated her wardrobe, transforming Jasmine's simple bohemian style into one of polished sophistication. "We need to create a believable backstory," Liam explained during their first lengthy session, poring over a meticulously crafted dossier. "You met through mutual friends at a charity gala 6 months ago. A quiet, intellectual connection blossomed. You share a love for classical music, obscure indie films, and philanthropic endeavors. You admire his drive. He appreciates your grounded nature and artistic spirit." Jasmine absorbed it all, taking notes, asking questions, inhabiting the character of Landon Pierce's devoted girlfriend with the dedication of a seasoned actress. She learned about Landon's preferred coffee, his favorite composers, his surprisingly detailed knowledge of ancient history. She memorized anecdotes, fabricated shared memories, and practiced affectionate gestures in front of a mirror, perfecting the tilt of her head, the warmth in her eyes, the gentle touch on his arm. It felt like preparing for the most demanding role of her life, a constant performance where the audience was the entire media landscape. Landon himself was a complex enigma. Their interactions were almost exclusively professional, conducted during strategy meetings with his team or during meticulously scheduled date nights designed for paparazzi. He was always composed, always in control, his intense gaze unwavering. He rarely smiled, and his conversations were precise, efficient, devoid of casual banter. He spoke about the merger, about market trends, about the nuances of public perception, but never about himself, never about his emotions. Yet, there were fleeting moments, subtle glimpses beneath the billionaire facade that began to intrigue Jasmine. During a dinner date at a high-end restaurant, orchestrated for maximum visibility, a small child at a nearby table dropped her teddy bear. Without a word, Landon, who usually seemed oblivious to his surroundings, quietly bent down, picked up the bear, and returned it to the child, offering a faint, almost imperceptible smile. The child beamed. It was a fleeting, human moment, completely unscripted, that contradicted his usual aloofness. Another time, during a PR photo shoot at a local park, a gust of wind dislodged a branch from a tree, sending it hurtling towards a group of pigeons. Landon, who had been posing stiffly, reacted instinctively, pushing a startled bird out of the way with a surprisingly gentle hand. It was a small act, but it showed a quick, protective instinct that resonated with Jasmine. He was also incredibly observant. One morning, after a particularly grueling photo shoot where Jasmine had been battling a headache, he quietly left a specific brand of herbal tea and a new, unusually soft pillow on the guesthouse porch. He never mentioned it, never asked if she'd used them. It was a silent gesture, a thoughtful concern delivered without fanfare, without drawing attention. These small acts chipped away at her carefully constructed perception of him as a cold, calculating machine. Jasmine found herself observing him, not just as an actress studying her scene partner, but as a woman trying to understand a perplexing man. She noticed the way his eyes seemed to carry a perpetual weariness, a deep-seated exhaustion that even his expensive suits couldn't hide. She saw the way he would sometimes glance out of his office window, a faraway look in his stormy eyes, as if lost in thought, or perhaps longing. She realized that beneath the impenetrable exterior, there was a quiet vulnerability, a sense of solitude that mirrored her own, albeit on a vastly different scale. The public appearances began. Charity galas, art exhibition openings, high-profile business dinners. Jasmine performed flawlessly. She smiled, she laughed, she made polite conversation, her hand resting naturally on Landon's arm, her gaze conveying warmth and admiration. The media, initially skeptical, slowly began to shift their narrative. Headlines about Landon Pierce's reclusive nature and alleged scandals were gradually replaced by articles praising his charming new girlfriend and speculating about their whirlwind romance. The merger, once jeopardized, seemed to be back on track. One evening, after a particularly long and draining event, they were driven back to the estate in silence. As the car pulled up to the main house, Landon turned to her. "You did well tonight, Jasmine," he said, his voice softer than usual, a hint of genuine appreciation in his tone. "You're very convincing." "It's my job," Jasmine replied, a faint flush rising on her cheeks. She found herself inexplicably flustered by his rare compliment. He paused, his eyes holding hers for a moment longer than necessary. "Indeed, but you bring a certain authenticity to the role. It's appreciated." As she walked to her guest house, the words echoed in her mind. Authenticity. He recognized it. In a role built on fabrication, he had seen something real in her performance. And in that moment, something shifted within Jasmine. The line between the character she was playing and her own feelings began to blur. The quiet vulnerability she had glimpsed, his subtle protectiveness, the way he seemed to slowly, almost imperceptibly, let her in. was starting to penetrate her carefully constructed emotional barriers. She was supposed to be the actress, flawlessly executing a role. But she found herself wanting to know the real Landon Pierce, the man behind the billionaire facade, the man who picked up fallen teddy bears and protected pigeons. The thought, unsettling and exhilarating, settled deep within her heart. She was falling for him. The realization that she was falling for Landon Pierce was both thrilling and terrifying. It felt like stepping onto a crumbling stage, knowing the performance could go awry at any moment. Her emotions, once neatly compartmentalized for the sake of the role, now bled into every interaction. The practiced smiles became genuine. The lingering touches carried an unspoken warmth, and the fabricated shared glances began to hold real meaning. Landon, in his own guarded way, seemed to respond. The almost imperceptible softening in his demeanor grew more pronounced. He started lingering after meetings, asking her about her day, not just as a formality, but with a quiet interest. He would bring her obscure books he thought she might enjoy, based on her fake interests, but which surprisingly aligned with her actual ones. He began to share small personal anecdotes, fragments of his past, glimpses into the mind of the man beneath the Mughal. He spoke of the exhilaration of building synergy innovations from the ground up, the lonely nights fueled by coffee and code, the sacrifices made for a vision. He never divulged specifics about his family life, or the particular scandal that necessitated their charade, but he spoke of a deep-seated desire for privacy, a longing for a world unburdened by public scrutiny. One evening, after a charity gala where they had performed their roles flawlessly, they returned to the estate. Instead of retreating to his study, Landon invited her to the rooftop garden, a hidden sanctuary amidst the glass and steel. The city lights twinkled below them like scattered jewels, and the cool night air was surprisingly refreshing. "It's peaceful up here," Jasmine commented, gazing out at the expansive view. Landon stood beside her, his shoulders relaxed, a rare sight. "I come up here when the noise gets too loud," he admitted, his voice softer than usual. The constant chatter, the expectations, the endless stream of data. Sometimes you just need silence. Jasmine looked at him, truly seeing him in that moment, not as the reclusive billionaire, but as a man seeking solace. "I understand that feeling," she confessed, thinking of her own struggles with the relentless demands of the acting world and the pervasive loneliness of unfulfilled dreams. The pressure can be suffocating. He turned to her, his stormy eyes unusually clear in the dim light. "You carry it well," he said, a hint of admiration in his voice. "The charade, I mean. You're remarkably poised under pressure." "It's just acting," Jasmine said, though her heart fluttered at his compliment. "Is it?" he challenged softly, a faint, almost teasing smile playing on his lips, a truly rare sight. "Or is there more to it than that, Ms. Reyes?" Their eyes met, and in that shared glance, an unspoken acknowledgement passed between them. The carefully constructed wall between them, between the fake girlfriend and the reclusive billionaire, seemed to momentarily dissolve. It was a powerful, exhilarating moment of connection, a silent acknowledgement of the growing feelings that defied their contractual agreement. The month was drawing to a close, and with each passing day, the thought of their arrangement ending became a dull ache in Jasmine's chest. She found herself wishing for more time, for a chance to explore this fragile, burgeoning connection without the pretense, without the looming deadline. She began to imagine a future where Landon Pierce's girlfriend was no longer a role, but a genuine reality. But just as her hopes began to soar, a subtle shift in Landon's behavior began to concern her. He grew more distant again, more preoccupied. His eyes, though still intense, seemed to hold a new, unspoken worry. He was taking more private calls, his voice hushed, his gestures agitated. He spent even more time in his study, the door often closed. The shared moments on the rooftop, the quiet conversations, became less frequent, replaced by a renewed aura of secrecy. Jasmine sensed a secret, a heavy one, weighing on him. It wasn't about the merger anymore. The media buzz had largely died down, and the deal was reportedly nearing completion. This felt deeper, more personal. She tried to ask, subtly at first, then more directly. "Is everything all right, Landon? You seem distracted." He would offer vague reassurances, or dismiss her concerns with a curt, "Just business, Jasmine, nothing to worry about." But his evasiveness only intensified her apprehension. The careful trust they had slowly built seemed to waver, threatened by an unknown truth. One afternoon, as she was tidying her guest house, a small, ornate wooden box caught her eye on a bookshelf. It had been there since she moved in, a decorative piece, she assumed. But something about it seemed different, almost out of place. Curiosity, a powerful, insistent urge, prompted her to pick it up. It wasn't locked. Inside, nestled on a velvet cushion, was a single, faded photograph. It was a picture of Landon, much younger, perhaps in his early 20s, standing beside a beautiful woman with long, dark hair and a radiant smile. She was holding a baby, a tiny bundle wrapped in a blanket, its face barely visible. Landon had his arm around the woman, his expression one of pure, unadulterated joy, a happiness she had never seen on his face. Jasmine stared at the photograph, her heart sinking. He was married, or had been, and he had a child. He had never mentioned a wife, never mentioned a child. The woman in the photo was clearly not Lena, his deceased wife, whose image she had seen in old news articles. This was someone else, someone from a past he had kept completely hidden. The pieces clicked into place with a sickening clarity. His reclusiveness, his deep desire for privacy, the elusive scandal that necessitated her role as a fake girlfriend. It wasn't just about a business merger. It was about something far more profound, a deeply personal secret he had carefully guarded. And she, Jasmine, the fake girlfriend, had just stumbled upon it. The photograph trembled in her hand. The vulnerability he had shown her, the quiet moments of connection, the burgeoning feelings she had foolishly allowed herself to develop, all suddenly felt like a cruel deception. He had let her in, yes, but only so far. He had kept the most fundamental truth of his life hidden from her. A cold dread settled over her, chilling her heart. The 1 month was almost over. The performance was nearly complete. But just when things had begun to feel real, Jasmine had discovered Landon's biggest secret, one that could shatter not just their fragile fake relationship, but her own heart into a million pieces. The love she had unknowingly cultivated felt like a betrayal, a bitter irony in a role she had never anticipated. The truth had emerged, and it was far more devastating than any lie she had ever been asked to tell. The faded photograph burned in Jasmine's hands, a silent testament to Landon's profound deception. The radiant smile of the woman in the picture, the joyous glint in young Landon's eyes as he held the baby, mocked the burgeoning feelings Jasmine had harbored. Her heart, once fluttering with nascent love, now felt like a lead weight in her chest, dragging her down into a bitter abyss of betrayal. The carefully constructed world of their fake relationship, complete with shared glances and whispered confidences, crumbled into dust. She felt a chilling coldness emanating from the picture, not from its physical form, but from the implications of its existence. He hadn't just omitted details, he had actively concealed a fundamental truth about his life. The media scandal that necessitated her presence suddenly took on a far darker, more personal hue. It wasn't just about a tarnished reputation, it was about a hidden family, a past that he had meticulously buried. Jasmine carefully placed the photograph back in the wooden box, her movements stiff, almost robotic. She closed the lid, as if trying to contain the painful truth, but it had already spilled into her soul, contaminating everything. She retreated to her guest house, the luxurious space now feeling like a gilded cage. The solitude, once a comfort, became suffocating. She spent the next few days in a fog of hurt and confusion, performing her duties with a forced smile, her mind reeling with unanswered questions. Who was the woman? What had happened to the child? Why had Landon kept this a secret, not just from the public, but from her, from the person he had supposedly let in? Every interaction with him felt like a cruel irony. His gentle touches, his quiet observations, his rare, soft smiles, all now seemed like part of an elaborate performance, a calculated deception to ensure her convincing portrayal of his loving girlfriend. Landon, oblivious to her discovery, continued to exhibit the same guarded preoccupation. The merger was in its final stages, and the press surrounding him was at its peak. He seemed distracted, his thoughts elsewhere, and Jasmine's internal turmoil went unnoticed. This only deepened her sense of isolation. The 1-month mark loomed large, a countdown to the end of their arrangement, and now the end of her fragile hopes. She knew she had to confront him, not just for herself, but to understand the full extent of his deception. The truth, however painful, was preferable to the corrosive uncertainty. She waited for an opportune moment, a time when they were alone, away from the watchful eyes of his team. It came during one of their pre-arranged, private dinners at his main residence, a quiet meal designed to foster the illusion of intimacy for any lurking paparazzi, though they were truly alone within the glass walls of Venero. His dining room. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Landon, sensing her unusual quietness, finally broke the silence. "Is something wrong, Jasmine?" he asked, his voice laced with a rare hint of concern. "You seem distant tonight." Jasmine took a deep breath, her hands clenching under the table. "Yes, Landon, something is very wrong." Her voice was steady, betraying none of the tremor in her heart. "I found this." She reached into her bag, pulling out a print of the faded photograph she had discreetly taken with her phone, laying it on the polished table between them. The image of young Landon, the woman, and the baby lay there, stark and revealing. Landon's eyes widened, a flicker of shock, then profound alarm crossing his face. His usual composure shattered. He stared at the photo, then at Jasmine, his jaw tightening. "Where did you get this?" His voice was low, laced with a dangerous edge she had never heard before. "That's not the point," Jasmine countered, her voice rising with the force of her pain. "The point is, who are they, Landon? And why did you keep them a secret from me, from the world?" He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of rare agitation. He looked around the room as if searching for an escape, for a way to contain the secret that had just burst into the open. "Jasmine, I can explain," he began, his voice strained. "Can you?" she challenged, her eyes blazing with hurt. "Because this isn't just a minor media kerfuffle, is it? This is a fundamental deception. You asked me to pretend to be your loving girlfriend, to project an image of stability, while concealing a whole hidden family. Why, Landon? Why the elaborate charade? And why lie to me?" He closed his eyes for a moment, then looked at her, his stormy gaze now filled with a raw vulnerability she had rarely witnessed. "Her name was Amelia," he began, his voice barely a whisper, laden with a deep, pervasive grief. "And the child. That's my son, Ethan." Jasmine's breath hitched. "A son. Amelia was my first love," Landon continued, his gaze distant, lost in the past. "We were young, just out of college. We had Ethan. It was complicated. Her family disapproved of me, saw me as too ambitious, too driven. They wanted her to marry someone suitable, someone from their world. They took Ethan. They had powerful connections, and I was just starting out, fighting to build synergy. They leveraged everything to keep me away from them, to erase me from their lives. I fought them, Jasmine. I fought them for years in the courts, but they had too much power, too much influence. They made it impossible for me to see my son. They moved Amelia and Ethan to Abena. Remote, private location, completely off the grid. His voice broke, a rare crack in his formidable composure. The media scandal they created wasn't about some random rumor. It was a calculated smear campaign designed to paint me as an unfit father, a reckless workaholic, someone who would neglect his child. It was orchestrated by her family to ensure I never gained custody, to destroy my public image and my company, to make sure I could never fight for Ethan again. They threatened to expose me, to destroy synergy, if I ever publicly pursued access to him. This merger, this deal is my one chance to build enough capital, enough influence, enough power to finally fight them on their own terms, to bring my son home. Jasmine listened, stunned, as the pieces of his hidden life clicked into place, not with the sickening clarity of deception, but with the profound tragedy of a deeply painful past. The reclusiveness, the obsession with privacy, the guardedness, it was all a shield, a desperate attempt to protect his last remaining hope. His words were raw, laced with a pain that resonated deep within her own heart. He wasn't a callous liar. He was a broken man, fighting a silent, desperate battle for his child. The initial shock gave way to a surge of empathy, a profound understanding that transcended her personal hurt. She saw the true weight he carried, a burden far heavier than any business deal. "And you couldn't tell me?" she asked, her voice softer, laced with sadness rather than anger. He looked at her, his eyes clouded with regret. "How could I, Jasmine? This entire charade, this merger, it's all about protecting Ethan. Revealing the truth would have jeopardized everything. It would have put him in even more danger, exposed him to their ruthlessness. And you were an outsider, someone who could accidentally reveal the truth, no matter how well-intentioned. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk him." His pain was palpable, a tangible entity filling the room. Jasmine's anger, though still simmering, began to dissipate, replaced by a deep compassion. The situation was far more complex, far more tragic than her initial judgment had allowed. He hadn't withheld the truth out of malice, but out of a desperate, protective love. The love she had unexpectedly found herself feeling for him, though bruised by his secrecy, now found a new, deeper resonance, anchored in shared vulnerability and unspoken understanding. The fake girlfriend, the reclusive billionaire, suddenly found themselves standing on far more real ground than either had anticipated. The revelation hung in the air, heavy and profound. Jasmine looked at Landon, the anger in her slowly transforming into a wave of understanding, then an overwhelming surge of empathy. The pain in his eyes was raw, unadulterated grief and desperation, a stark contrast to his usual impenetrable composure. His secret was not a betrayal of malice, but a desperate act born of a father's love. "Landon," she said, her voice soft, I had no idea." The words felt inadequate, hollow in the face of his immense burden. He ran a hand through his hair, his shoulders slumping slightly, as if the weight of his secret, now exposed, had temporarily crushed him. "I'm sorry, Jasmine," he murmured, his gaze fixed on the photograph of Amelia and Ethan. "I never meant to hurt you. I couldn't risk it, not with Ethan's future hanging in the balance." Jasmine reached across the table, her hand hesitantly covering his. His skin was cool beneath her touch. "Why now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why risk everything with this merger?" He lifted his gaze to hers, his stormy eyes filled with a desperate resolve. "Their family is powerful, Jasmine. Old money, deep connections. They controlled the narrative, manipulated the courts. I was just a hungry tech founder fighting uphill battles. This merger with Zenith Corporation will give Synergy Innovations unprecedented market dominance, and with that, unprecedented capital and influence. It's my only way to finally challenge them, to expose their corruption, and to bring Ethan home. I need resources that even my current wealth can't guarantee. The kind of institutional power that can stand up to their old-world machinations." End quote. The scale of his fight, the depth of his commitment, was staggering. Jasmine saw not a cold, calculating billionaire, but a man driven by a singular, consuming purpose to reclaim his son. Her heart ached for him, for the decade of silent suffering, for the unimaginable pain of being separated from his child. "And I was part of the charade?" she asked, the words still carrying a faint sting. He squeezed her hand gently. "You were. And you were brilliant at it. You brought an authenticity that even my PR team couldn't have fabricated. You made me human to the public. You helped salvage my reputation against their lies. You made this merger possible, Jasmine." His eyes held a depth of gratitude that surprised her. "You are not just a fake girlfriend. You are an integral part of this fight." The validation in his words, the genuine appreciation, began to heal the initial wound of betrayal. She saw that her role had inadvertently become far more meaningful than a mere performance. She was aiding him in a desperate, noble cause. "What about Amelia?" she asked softly, her gaze returning to the photograph. "Is she with Ethan?" Landon sighed, a deep, weary sound. Amelia loved Ethan fiercely, but she was trapped too. Her family isolated her, controlling her every move. She tried to reach out to me a few times, secretly, but they always found out. They were relentless. She passed away last year, a sudden illness. I only found out through a private investigator I still keep on retainer, trying to track Ethan. Her family kept it quiet. Of course. My son is now completely alone with them, isolated. That's why the urgency, Jasmine. I can't let him grow up in that environment, cut off from everything, from me. The tragedy of it all, the relentless cruelty of Amelia's family, was heartbreaking. Jasmine's heart went out to Landon, who had endured such profound loss and separation, silently, for so long. The protective instinct she had felt for him, which had initially confused her, now felt perfectly clear. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, her voice firm, unwavering. She wasn't just his fake girlfriend anymore. She was his ally, deeply invested in his fight. Landon looked at her, a spark of hope, faint but discernible, in his eyes. "The merger agreement is set to be signed in 2 weeks. It's the final public push. After that, once the capital is secured, I begin the legal offensive. I'll need you to continue the charade for a little longer, perhaps until the deal is fully ratified. Just a few more public appearances, a few more perfect dates, and then, I understand if you want to walk away." Jasmine squeezed his hand, a silent promise. "I won't walk away, Landon," she said, her voice resolute. "I'm with you, until Ethan is home." A profound relief washed over his face, softening the harsh lines of tension that usually defined him. A genuine, unguarded smile, full of gratitude and a touch of disbelief, touched his lips. It was a smile that reached his eyes, melting the stormy intensity, revealing a glimpse of the joy he must have felt in that faded photograph. The next 2 weeks were intense. Jasmine played her role with renewed purpose, every affectionate glance, every whispered word, now imbued with a deeper meaning. She wasn't just acting, she was fighting alongside him, a silent partner in his crusade. She learned even more about Landon, about his fierce loyalty, his unwavering determination, and the deep, abiding love he held for a son he barely knew. She saw the toll it took on him, the sleepless nights, the constant vigilance, the burden of a decade of suppressed pain. And with every passing day, her feelings for him solidified, growing into a love that was no longer fake, no longer a performance, but utterly, powerfully real. The merger signing ceremony was a grand affair, televised and attended by global media. Landon, standing tall and confident, signed the historic agreement, a symbol of his hard-won victory. Jasmine stood by his side, her hand gently resting on his arm, her smile radiant with genuine pride. The flashbulbs popped, capturing the image of the successful billionaire and his devoted girlfriend, completely unaware of the hidden battle he was about to wage and the secret, unspoken love that bound them. As the ceremony concluded and the final press conferences wrapped up, Landon turned to her, his eyes filled with a quiet triumph. "It's done," he whispered, a profound relief in his voice. "The capital is secured. The fight for Ethan begins." Jasmine looked at him, her heart swelling with a mix of joy and apprehension. The charade was officially over. Now, the real battle began, and with it, the question of their own future. Had their fake relationship, forged in secrecy and fueled by deception, laid the groundwork for something truly real? Only time and the unfolding truth would tell. She was ready to face whatever came next, by his side, no longer his fake girlfriend, but simply, irrevocably, in love with Landon Pierce. The weeks following the merger's finalization were a maelstrom of legal activity. Landon, now armed with the formidable resources of Synergy Innovations, unleashed a team of the sharpest legal minds on the family that had held his son captive for so long. He revealed everything: the original baseless smear campaign, the manipulative tactics used to deny him access, the constant surveillance they had placed on him. Jasmine, though no longer publicly performing the role of his girlfriend, remained by his side, a quiet pillar of support, her presence a silent testament to her unwavering commitment. She attended strategy meetings, absorbing the complex legal jargon, witnessing Landon's relentless determination. The opposing family, powerful and entrenched, initially dismissed Landon's efforts as a desperate attempt by a pariah. They scoffed at his renewed legal challenges, confident in their long-standing influence. But they underestimated Landon's resolve and the sheer scale of his newly acquired resources. He had meticulously documented every attempt they had made to thwart him, every legal maneuver, every veiled threat. He had built his case with the same precision and foresight he applied to his cybersecurity empires. Jasmine witnessed a side of Landon she hadn't seen before: the ruthless strategist, the relentless fighter, but always driven by the core motivation of reclaiming his son. He spent countless hours poring over legal documents, strategizing with his lawyers, his sleep almost non-existent. She would often find him in his study late at night, surrounded by stacks of papers, his face drawn with fatigue, but his eyes burning with an unyielding purpose. She would bring him coffee or a quiet meal, and sometimes she would just sit with him in silence, her presence a comforting anchor in the storm. Their connection deepened during this period. The boundaries of their fake relationship had completely dissolved, replaced by a profound bond forged in shared purpose and unspoken love. The casual touches became more frequent, more intimate. His stormy eyes, when they met hers, held a warmth and vulnerability that was exclusively for her. They talked for hours, not about strategy, but about their lives, their dreams, their fears. Jasmine shared her struggles as an actress, the constant rejections, the financial anxieties, the quiet despair of deferred dreams. Landon listened intently, offering not platitudes, but genuine understanding and a surprising tenderness. He had become her confidant, her safe harbor. One evening, after a particularly draining day of legal depositions, Landon walked into the guest house, his shoulders slumped, a rare sign of defeat. "They're relentless," he murmured, running a hand through his hair. Every move they counter, every attempt to gain access they block. It's like fighting a ghost, an invisible, omnipresent force. Jasmine walked over to him, gently placing her hand on his arm. "You're not fighting alone, Landon," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You have your lawyers, you have your resources, and you have me." He looked at her, his eyes weary, but a faint light flicker in their depths. He reached out, pulling her gently into his arms. It was not a passionate embrace, but one of deep comfort and desperate need. He rested his chin on her head, holding her close, a silent acknowledgement of his vulnerability and his profound reliance on her presence. Jasmine held him just as tightly, her heart aching for his pain, her love for him overflowing. "Thank you, Jasmine," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "For everything." The legal battle stretched on for months, a grueling test of endurance. There were setbacks, frustrating delays, and moments when Landon felt his hope waver. But Jasmine was there, a constant source of quiet strength, reminding him of his purpose, of Ethan. She understood the intricacies of his legal strategy, the subtleties of his emotional landscape, more deeply than anyone else. She was no longer just the actress who played his girlfriend, she was his unwavering partner. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a breakthrough. Landon's legal team uncovered irrefutable evidence of the opposing family's long-standing pattern of manipulation, their financial strong-arming of judges, their use of private investigators to harass and intimidate Landon. They found evidence of their deliberate attempts to isolate Ethan, to prevent him from having any contact with the outside world, effectively holding him captive. The exposure of these tactics, coupled with Landon's unassailable financial power and public influence, shifted the tide dramatically. The family, realizing they were facing an opponent they could no longer intimidate or outmaneuver, finally agreed to negotiate. They wanted to avoid a public trial, the inevitable scandal, and the potential dismantling of their own carefully constructed reputation. The negotiations were fierce, protracted, but Landon held firm, his demands absolute: full custody of Ethan, supervised visitation rights for the maternal grandparents, and a complete cessation of all manipulative tactics. One late afternoon, Landon walked into the guest house, his face unreadable. Jasmine's heart leaped into her throat. She had been waiting for days, her nerves frayed with anticipation. "Well?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He looked at her, a slow, triumphant smile spreading across his face, a smile she had seen only once before in that faded photograph. "We did it, Jasmine," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's over. Ethan is coming home." Tears welled up in Jasmine's eyes, tears of profound relief and overwhelming joy. She launched herself into his arms, burying her face in his shoulder, her own silent sobs mirroring his quiet, triumphant tears. It was a victory hard won, a decade in the making, and she had been there for the final, crucial push. The days leading up to Ethan's arrival were a whirlwind of anticipation, apprehension, and meticulous planning. Landon transformed a wing of his sprawling estate into a vibrant, child-friendly haven, complete with a playroom filled with age-appropriate toys, a cozy bedroom adorned with space-themed wallpaper, and a small, private library bursting with colorful books. He consulted with Dr. Harris, seeking guidance on how to best navigate this delicate reunion, how to reintroduce himself to a child who had grown up believing a different narrative. He was no longer the aloof billionaire. He was a nervous, hopeful father, meticulously preparing for the most important moment of his life. Jasmine was by his side through it all, her heart overflowing with a mix of joy and trepidation. She helped him choose furniture, picked out books, and even helped him assemble a complex Lego castle, laughing at his frustrated attempts to follow the instructions. Her presence was a calming influence on Landon, who, despite his immense composure in the business world, was openly vulnerable when it came to his son. She witnessed the depth of his fatherly love, a powerful, unwavering force that solidified her own feelings for him. The day Ethan arrived was etched forever in Jasmine's memory. Landon had chosen to meet him alone at a neutral location, a private park chosen by Dr. Harris to minimize any potential trauma. Jasmine remained at the estate, her nerves jangling with a mixture of excitement and fear. Hours later, Landon's car pulled up the driveway. Jasmine stood on the porch, her heart pounding. Landon stepped out first, his face radiating a profound, almost ethereal joy she had never seen before. Then, he opened the back door, and a small boy, perhaps 11 or 12 years old, stepped out. Ethan. He was a slender boy with a quiet demeanor, his dark hair falling across his forehead, and eyes that were unmistakably Landon's, though currently wide with apprehension. He clutched a worn backpack, his posture a little stiff. The years of isolation, of being kept from his father, were subtly evident in his reserved movements. Landon introduced them, his voice gentle, infused with a tenderness that brought tears to Jasmine's eyes. "Ethan, this is Jasmine. She's a very dear friend. She's been helping me prepare for your arrival." Ethan offered a small, shy smile, his gaze flickering from Landon to Jasmine, then to the grand house. Jasmine, conscious of not overwhelming him, offered a warm, reassuring smile back, careful not to press too much. She understood that this was a delicate dance, a slow, patient process of building trust and family. The first few weeks were a period of careful adjustment. Ethan was quiet, observant, slowly exploring his new home and tentatively getting to know his father. Landon was incredibly patient, never pushing, always allowing Ethan the space and time he needed. He spent hours reading to him, playing quiet games, listening intently to the fragments of stories Ethan would share about his isolated life. He honored Ethan's past, but slowly, gently, began to introduce him to a world of open communication, genuine affection, and true freedom. Jasmine found herself naturally slipping into a supportive role. She helped Ethan with his schoolwork, shared her love for art and music, and simply offered a calm, friendly presence. She saw the gradual blossoming of the boy, the quiet confidence that began to emerge as he felt safer, more loved, more seen. She witnessed Landon's profound joy in these small victories, his quiet tears of relief as Ethan's laughter echoed through the house, a sound that had been absent for far too long. Her love for Landon deepened with every interaction. She saw him not just as the brilliant, formidable billionaire, but as a devoted father, a man capable of immense tenderness and unwavering loyalty. The fake girlfriend role had faded completely, replaced by a genuine partnership, a deep emotional connection that felt more real than anything she had ever experienced. One evening, after Ethan was asleep, Landon and Jasmine sat together in the living room, a comfortable silence settling between them. The house, once filled with the ghosts of his past, now felt vibrant, alive with the promise of a future. "He's adjusting," Landon said, his voice soft, a hint of exhaustion but mostly profound relief in his tone. "Slowly, but he's opening up. He asked me about his mother today, about Amelia." Jasmine nodded, her heart aching for both of them. "That's a good sign, Landon. He trusts you." Landon turned to her, his stormy eyes warm and vulnerable. "And I trust you, Jasmine, more than anyone." He reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "This whole charade, it started as a necessity, a means to an end, but it led me to you. You've been my strength, my anchor through all of this. You helped me bring my son home, and you've shown me what real partnership, love, truly means." Jasmine's heart pounded. She knew what was coming, and every fiber of her being yearned for it. "Jasmine," he began, his voice low and earnest, "I know this started with a contract, with a lie. But what we have, What I feel for you, it's real. It's the most real thing in my life. I don't want you to be my fake girlfriend anymore. I want you to be my partner in everything, in life, in raising Ethan. Will you stay? Tears welled up in Jasmine's eyes. Happy tears this time, overflowing with relief and overwhelming love. Yes, Landon, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He smiled, a radiant, unguarded smile that lit up his entire face, a reflection of the joy she had only ever glimpsed in that faded photograph. He leaned in, and their lips met, a kiss filled with the weight of their shared past, the triumph of their present, and the promise of a future they would build together, brick by brick, moment by moment. The road ahead wouldn't be without its challenges. Ethan's healing journey would be long, and their new family dynamics would require patience and understanding. But they would face it together, no longer hiding behind pretenses, but standing united in their genuine love. The struggling actress had landed the role of a lifetime, not as a fake girlfriend, but as a true partner, finding love in the most unexpected of circumstances. And the reclusive billionaire had found not just his son, but a love that was more precious than any merger, more valuable than any empire. Their story, forged in deception, had blossomed into a profound truth, a testament to the unpredictable, transformative power of the human heart. The lights of the city outside no longer blurred. They shone with a newfound clarity, reflecting the bright, unwritten future that awaited them. Life with Landon and Ethan settled into a beautiful, if still evolving, rhythm. The sprawling estate, once so austere, now echoed with the sounds of a family truly living. Ethan, once reserved, slowly shed his cautious demeanor. He started school, made friends, and excelled in art, showing a creative spark that delighted both Landon and Jasmine. His laughter, free and unrestrained, became the sweetest music in the house. Landon, true to his word, prioritized Ethan, dedicating time each day to reading, playing, and simply being present. He was learning, day by day, what it meant to be a full-time father, and his unwavering love was a powerful force in Ethan's healing. Jasmine found herself not just a partner to Landon, but a nurturing presence for Ethan. She helped him navigate the complexities of school, listened patiently to his childhood dramas, and offered a gentle, understanding ear. She continued to pursue her acting, albeit on her own terms now, choosing roles that resonated with her, rather than desperately chasing any opportunity. Her financial freedom allowed her to be selective, to focus on the craft, and the unexpected peace of mind unlocked a new depth in her performances. She found a particular passion for voice acting, lending her expressive voice to animated characters, a perfect blend of performance and the quiet anonymity she now cherished. Landon's work at Synergy Innovations continued to thrive, but his approach had shifted. He delegated more, fostered a healthier work-life balance, and championed initiatives within his company that promoted employee well-being. The legal battles were behind them, but the experience had forged a stronger, more compassionate leader. His focus on the Rosie's Voice Foundation, which he continued to champion through his own family's trauma, became an even more central part of his public persona, solidifying his image not just as a tech titan, but as a philanthropist with a profound personal mission. Their relationship, built on the unusual foundation of a fake romance, deepened into a profound, unconditional love. They navigated the everyday challenges of blending a family, of two strong personalities learning to live in harmony. There were moments of disagreement, of course, but their communication was open, honest, and built on a foundation of mutual respect and trust. Landon, once so guarded, was now completely open with Jasmine, sharing his fears, his aspirations, and the quiet vulnerabilities he had once kept hidden from the world. One crisp autumn evening, a year after Ethan had come home, The three of them were sitting by the fireplace in the living room, a crackling fire casting warm shadows across the room. Ethan was engrossed in a book, occasionally looking up to share a fascinating fact. Landon had his arm around Jasmine, a comfortable, contented silence settling between them. "You know," Ethan suddenly piped up, looking at Landon, "my friend Leo was asking about our family today. He said he saw an old picture of you in a magazine with a different lady." Jasmine's breath hitched, and she instinctively tensed. Landon, however, remained calm. He looked at Ethan, his eyes gentle and reassuring. "That's a very good question, son," he said, his voice even. "Before you came to live with me, there was a time when I had to pretend to have a girlfriend for work. It was complicated, and it was a long time ago. Jasmine wasn't that person back then." He paused, then continued, his gaze warm as it met Jasmine's. "But Jasmine is my partner now, and she's a very important part of our family. And you," he added, pulling Ethan closer, "you are the most important part of my life." Ethan nodded, absorbing the information with a child's simple acceptance. He seemed satisfied, then went back to his book. Jasmine looked at Landon, her heart full. He had handled it with such grace, such honesty. The old lie, the public charade, was now just a distant anecdote, explained with truth and love. It was a testament to how far they had come, how completely they had integrated their past into their present, transforming secrets into foundations for deeper connection. As the years unfolded, their family flourished. They traveled, they laughed, they faced challenges together, always with an unwavering commitment to each other. Landon and Jasmine built a life that was rich in meaning, purpose, and genuine connection. They adopted a playful golden retriever, adding another layer of joyous chaos to their home. Their love story, unconventional in its beginnings, became a testament to the unpredictable nature of the heart and the profound power of truth to heal even the deepest wounds. Jasmine never regretted taking that role as a fake girlfriend. It had led her to Landon, to Ethan, and to a love that was more real, more fulfilling than any script could ever have imagined. The reclusive billionaire had found his family, his peace, and a love that permeated every corner of his once guarded world. And the struggling actress had found her true stage, not in the spotlight of fame, but in the quiet, powerful drama of a life lived authentically, with the man she loved and the son who completed their world. The story of Landon Pierce and Jasmine Reyes became a legend whispered among the elite. Not for its initial scandalous premise, but for its quiet, enduring testament to a love that transcended pretense, proving that sometimes the most profound truths can emerge from the most unexpected of lies.